Hi. So I'm going to go over a quick overview of the Reset Food Plan. So you're a patient at Casoni Wellness, and one of the team members or myself have prescribed the Reset Food Plan. This is for you. It's going to tell you exactly what that means. Of course, it's on the website too, so you can read it should you want to look up the Reset Food Plan. But I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to get started. Or you're a non-patient and you've heard of the plan, or a friend of yours is doing the plan and you want to join in. So I'm going to cover the plan and its basic features first, and then you can stop watching the video. And then if you want a little bit more information on why the plan is designed the way it is, then you stay on the video and I'm going to cover a few additional concepts. Okay, let's get started. Okay, the Reset Food Plan. The Reset Food Plan is based on foods that are allowed and foods that are not allowed. It is very flexible and it is very simple. No counting of calories, points, blocks, or any other obsessive practice that can create neurosis over food. It's the last thing we want. It is not especially a high protein food plan, nor is it a high fat food plan. What are allowed are veggies, nuts, seeds, pork, lamb, poultry, beef, fish, and eggs. What is not allowed is grains, starches, sugars, beans, or milk. And what that means is also bread, pasta, rice, potato chips, cookies, crackers, etc. Those are all the high carbohydrate food items. Those are not allowed. Allowed but limited are fruits and berries, right? No more than one serving a day. Coffee, yay. Black or with heavy cream only, though. Or if you want to add some stevia or something, that's going to be fine. But really no chemicals, and you want to keep out the sugars, of course. Dressings and sauces, keep that to a minimum because that can add up real quick if you're adding that to your salads. And cheese is fantastic, but it's very congesting and hard on the gut and can be constipating. So just be mindful of the amount of cheese you're eating. It's allowed, but be mindful. Plain yogurt, same thing. If you're going to add some fruit, that's fine, but you're never going to get, good yogurt when it has the fruit added at the store because it's loaded with sugar and additives and preservatives. Products with sugar alcohols, be especially careful with xylitol or maltitol products, especially if you have gut issues. For people without gut issues, just balancing your blood sugars, that's probably okay, but just be mindful of those products and keep them to a minimum either way. And then hard alcohol. Beer and wine are going to have too much sugar and carbs in them, but hard liquor is actually okay. Now, it's still a poison. So if you're motivated and you're not much of a drinker, I would keep this out of the food plan altogether. However, we have seen the patients, if they keep a minimum of the hard alcohol, they do okay. It's not going to get in the way of your body burning fat. If you check a ketone strip, which tells you if your body's burning fat and you have a hard alcohol drink, actually you stay fat burning. However, it still is hard on the liver. While you're drinking the alcohol, the liver's priority is to deal with that alcohol. And if you have a lot of inflammation and things that we need that liver to be addressing, then that's going to get in the way. But we'll leave that up to you. Okay, that's it. There's no restrictions on when you eat or how much you eat. As cravings decrease, food consumption will naturally decrease. That's so great, isn't it? So when you try to eat, Doritos, right? If they're gross, but you still can't stop eating them because they're designed to be addictive. So you have to force yourself to stop. But when we're having meats and vegetables primarily, it's really kind of built in, right? You don't accidentally eat 3 chicken breasts. It's just kind of built in. So that's fantastic. And that's one of the main points of this food plan. So follow the food plan strictly for a minimum of 3 weeks before deviating. This is very important. You're going to be getting the benefits. And if you don't stick with it, you're going to constantly get the cravings back and not quite get rid of the symptoms. And then you're going to be confused about whether or not it's a valuable food plan for you. Give yourself the gift of a committed initial 3 weeks. That way you know how you're feeling. Now, if you have a lot of issues going on, then yes, you're going to be on it longer than those 3 weeks. So call it a therapeutic time period where you're committed to it with those health goals in mind. And as you're achieving the health goals at that time, you can decrease your restrictions. Maybe like me, you have cheat days on the weekends, or maybe you're done with the plan altogether, as long as you're not going backwards. But That's for maintenance. Right now, it's for our therapeutic push, and we want to stick with it until we get improved, right? So especially patients with stubborn chronic conditions or more than 30 pounds to lose, if weight is one of the issues, then you'll need to follow reset and probably the phases. So the reset food plan has phases in addition to the initial plan that we just covered. Those phases are advanced. They're not needed for everybody, but if you have stuff going on, then you're going to want to explore the phases. And I'm going to make another video just for those phases. And that includes topics like fasting, which is fantastic for therapeutic results. But we cover that next video and in the phases. Okay, so at this point, you can discontinue and just, maybe you got some mental notes, you keep it simple, start following the food plan, and that's great. If you want to stick with me through the rest of the video, I'm going to fill you in on a little bit more information. So additional considerations: drastically lowering carbohydrate intake to less than 40 grams a day of net carbs can lead to sudden water loss, causing electrolyte imbalances, leading to flu-like symptoms. We really don't see this very often on the reset food plan because there's no restriction to veggies and nuts and seeds, and fruits are allowed. Not completely unlimited with the fruits, but you still can easily get in 80 to even 100 grams of carbohydrates, which is an upper limit, actually. It's just actually absurd that most of us have been following the food pyramid, which tells you to eat bread and pasta all day. And no wonder we have so many metabolic issues in this country. If you did lower your carbohydrates drastically, even if the food plan guidelines don't tell you to do that, there is some flexibility. What you would want to do is just increase those veggies and increase those nuts and seeds. You also can add salt or some electrolytes. If you're a patient of ours, let the team know, and we might give you something just to make sure that you're holding on to that water during this initial time period. If you follow the reset and you're not going especially aggressively, that really doesn't happen. The reset is like a gradual system, and then in the phases we get to fasting, but by then your body's used to it. So we really don't have a lot of these sudden symptoms the way people get when they suddenly go carnivore, like a zero carb diet. They go from regular to zero. The body's completely shocked, and that's really, we don't really see a lot of that. But nonetheless, you know how that happens. Patients with gut issues should avoid low carb products that contain wheat. We get low carb tortillas cycling around and they taste pretty good. But if you have gut issues, that can still irritate your gut. So until we get you better, don't experiment with those. Once we get you better and we know what's your baseline of health, then you can add something and know if it's going to be a fit for you or not. Also the sugar alcohols, which I already mentioned, which can cause gastrointestinal distress, and raw veggies. Raw veggies are hard to digest. So if you have gut issues, keep those minimal. If cravings persist, be strict on reset, but allow yourself to increase the fats. The fats will create satiation and calm down the cravings. So add some avocado to the salad, or a strip of bacon or something, or have a fatty hamburger patty. Delicious, but the cravings just go right out the window, as long as you're low carb. If you're still having carbs plus the fats, you're just going to have a spike of insulin and you're going to mishandle it. It'll be a different reaction. Like ice cream has sugar plus fat. So it causes a burden to the body and the spike of insulin that we're trying to treat. For vegetarian and vegan patients, we're going to have to go back to calorie counting, but here we're not going to count the calories, but it's the same kind of mindset as calorie counting. Instead, we're just going to count the grams, just keep the overall total intake of net carbohydrate grams to below 80 for the day. And you should get some of the same benefits that we're talking about in the reset food plan. Okay, so the first time I put somebody on a lowered carbohydrate food plan professionally was when I was 18 years old. Isn't that just interesting? You know, I started as a personal trainer, and I worked for a number of different places, some gyms in San Pedro, YMCA, had a few restaurant jobs early on, but almost my entire adult life has been professionally using dietary strategies and health strategies, and lowering the carbohydrates is nothing new. So here we have a picture of the gym I owned. This is like one part of it, Range of Motion. Love that place. For 20 years, I owned a gym. And of course, it got closed by COVID. So that was kind of a tragedy. But nonetheless, life moves on. Point is, spend a lot of time in this conversation. And, you know, putting clients back before I was in medicine, putting clients on these like complicated plans where they had to count things, and we had to create um, a a deficit based on goals and exercise, and it just gets so complicated that the only person who can follow that is neurotic about their food, or they become neurotic. So this food plan is the opposite of that. We're keeping it very simple. However, adjusting macronutrients, which is fats, proteins, carbs versus calories, is nothing new. It just makes it very simplistic, and it creates a satiation and a reduction of cravings where we don't have to work so hard at counting calories or anything else. So lowering carbohydrates has been around since before we had bagels, literally. And look, here we have some bagels. Okay, so resetting refers to resetting the function of the hypothalamus and pituitary, right? So those are the master control centers of the hormone system, and those are really what we're trying to reset. And this came from research when I first saw that term out of Johns Hopkins University when they were studying epileptic patients, and they were using strict low-carb diets to try to reset the system that they claimed happened right around day 30 of a strict low carbohydrate diet. Of course, the term reset has been probably used and applied to many different styles of lifestyle medicine and can be applied to metabolism, hormone system, detoxification, mindset, lots of different diets called that way. And that's the point here, is that this isn't a fad diet. This is just a reference to physiology. And that's the purpose of this. Of course, reset your body, reset your life. There's a picture that my son took, which is really cool. He's become quite the photographer and videographer. But we're going to change. We're going to get treatment for a condition. You're coming in to see us as patients. We're looking at diet and lifestyle. It's also good to just make that vision as big as you can, because the more you are addressing everything in your life, the more meaningful it becomes. And then whatever condition happened becomes actually that new line in the sand that makes you launch into growth in every area. Versus I'm just going to follow this diet and I hate this diet and I'm upset at it. That's only going to create like a victim experience that will make you demoralized. But if you look at it like, okay, I'm meant to do this and I'm excited for this health journey, and I want to also address my relationships, finances, etc., then it really becomes quite awesome. And that's whenever I draw a new line in the sand with my own health, I try to expand the vision so that more than one area is improving. And then I'm highly motivated. Okay, so here we have the cavemen. Yeah, we're not doing an ideology. Reset's not based on like, here's how everybody should eat. Cavemen ate this way, so everybody should eat this way. Or now we're going to do carnivore, so everybody should do carnivore. That's not what's going on here. Reset is based on physiology, and its application is used for therapeutic time periods to improve health. So as we're getting you healthy and we're meeting our health goals, then you don't need reset as much. Pizza is never going to be biologically needed by anybody, but it's delicious. It just might be that we're getting rid of it for a while. And as we're getting healthy, maybe we can include that at least sometimes. How often we can include it depends on how sick we've been, and also whether or not we go backwards. So we want to, once we're in maintenance, it's like, great, I can have some less restriction, have more of these foods, but just keep track of the signs and symptoms so that we're not going to go start over or go backwards. Okay, so reset food plan is very simple. In fact, actually, I like to think of the analogy of a runner, right? Let's say you have this runner and they hurt their knee, right? If a runner hurts their knee, they got to stop running until the knee's better. Same kind of thing, right? If some part of the body is irritated, it's not enough to go to get treatment. Let's say they're coming in for acupuncture, getting physical therapy on their knee, but they injured their knee from running and they're still running every day. So it won't heal. And that's really what reset is. We're giving a relief to the blood sugar system, to the gastrointestinal system. And so the other factors would be how severe the damage is, right? The more chronic illness, the older the person is, the more that the body's been beat up. Of course, just like the runner, the more severe the damage to the knee, the longer the period of time that they're going to have to take a break from running. Right. So the other thing is that if there's somebody with a severe condition, let's say that you have, Crohn's or colitis, severe gastrointestinal tract disorders, where if you eat the wrong foods, it can land you in the hospital. Well, then that would be like the runner who has such a damaged knee that maybe they just can't run anymore. And so, but the goal here for most patients is a therapeutic time period where we're treating you and the food plan is working in conjunction so that we're getting the body better. As we're getting you better, you need less treatment, you need less custom herbal formulas that we're making for you, and you have less restrictions on the food plan. So keep it simple and keep that your mindset. Not everyone needs reset, right? So some of you watching this might not be patients of Casoni Wellness. That's fine. You're welcome to, experiment with the concepts that I'm teaching you here. But, not every patient has a condition that's related to diet or lifestyle. And that's why, once again, this is not like an ideology or a fad diet. It's just a reference to functions. But that also means that when we prescribe reset food plan to you as a patient, it is because it is relevant to the treatment goals, and failing to follow it will be an obstacle to improvements. So please, if we prescribed it, stick with it. It's a simple plan and it's got some great benefits. Stay the course. Stay the course. Disclaimer for non-patients. Even though medical doctors are not trained in clinical nutrition, diet, or lifestyle medicine, you must check with your medical doctor before making any changes to your eating habits. It's the way it is. Got to go to the doctors just to make sure. Now, in all fairness, conventional care doctors operate with high liability. So they can't deviate to really keep track of causative factors that we mostly crave in our practice. That's what we're addressing. We're looking at relationships of the physiology and causative factors, what systems are in trouble, what's in the way of function, how to improve function. That's not done in conventional care. They're not looking for how to improve anything. They're basically doing triage. And if they miss something, they're in trouble. It's a high liability field. So for that reason, we do refer out often whenever we see a red flag, because a medical doctor has a liability to find something serious. They're in trouble if they miss it. And there's a high stress and high pressure. And so we all respect that. What has happened with our conventional care is because of that high liability and the rigid standard of care, they've become useless in looking for causative factors and treating. You can go to a gastrointestinal doctor and they won't even talk about diet. Right? Diet's not related to all diseases, but we're talking about a gut specialist. Well, that's not part of their standard of care. So nonetheless, that's what we are here for. And there you go. So clinically, the reset food plan is most useful in treating patients with either of the two conditions. And that's going to be unstable blood sugar and gastrointestinal tract conditions. So I want you to think, though, how often those two areas are related to other chief complaints. So I'm going to mention that in a moment, right? So blood sugar and gut issues, or any patient who has those two systems, these two conditions, these two areas of dysfunction that are part of the root cause for their chief complaint. Right. So, for example, you have a patient with inflammation-related illness that may be caused by gut issues. We got to treat the gut issues, even though their chief complaint is arthritis or something. Or you have a patient with hot flashes and their fluctuating blood sugars their crashes, making their adrenal glands have to produce cortisol and pick them up. And that's affecting their sex hormone system. So we have to balance those blood sugars. Well, we're treating their hormone system with our custom herbal formulas to get them feeling better. Main symptoms of dysglycemia, which is any abnormality in how we're managing our fuels. That's what that term is, dysglycemia. Cravings for carbs and sugar. Tired after you eat, right? You're eating and your insulin's going up too quick. It's not going into the furnace, and you're either going to gain weight or urinate more, or urinate at night, right? So irritable if your meal is skipped, right? You're hangry, not satiated. You eat and you still want a snack. Fluctuating energy levels, which of course eventually turns into low energy levels. Poor concentration, disrupted sleep. You got to be fat burning to get through the sleep, to get through the night, right? It's like you're fasting at night. However, and that's not for weight loss, that's just for fuel stability. But when you have fluctuating energy levels and spikes and drops and valleys in your fuel regulation, then you're crashing at night. And then once again, the cortisol, the adrenals that gets involved. You're making sugar in the middle of the night. You're waking up with higher blood sugars than when to bed with, and you're disrupted. You're waking up 2, 3 in the morning and you can't get back to sleep, something like that. So weight gain, of course, is going to happen, or plenty of people have these, all these symptoms, all these problems here with dysglycemia, and they're not gaining weight. They're urinating it out, and they're causing problems to their kidneys, urinary tract infections, irritations, peeing at night, all that kind of stuff. Many of these biomarkers won't show up on labs, right? If you're just chasing labs, you really, the heart and soul of holistic care is knowing the physiology. When I do an intake for a new patient, it's an exhaustive list of signs and symptoms that I'm covering and educating about and taking notes on the response, because that's really the heart and soul of medicine. And many of the most important features, which I would call a biomarker, signs and symptoms, could also be a lab, could also be a physical presentation. But those tell us where we're at within the case, right? So you have waking up at 2, 3 in the morning and you're treating the person, and now that's no longer occurring. We can draw conclusions about what systems are improving based on those symptoms. But you got to know your signs and symptoms, and you got to know your physiology. But you go to the regular doctor, they're just going to look at numbers, right? We have patients who are completely sick and falling apart, and their doctor says nothing's wrong with them. Yet we do an intake and we know exactly what's going on. Well, that's because we're looking at a different picture. Can't just look at the paper. Okay, so it's important to understand that it's not about eating too many carbohydrates. It's about an overreaction to them. This is so important to understand, because you could be thinking, I don't eat that many carbohydrates. Fine, but your body's reached a point where you're overreacting to them, right? And the way that happens is the carbohydrates should be going into the furnace, giving you energy. They're staying too long in the blood vessels, causing inflammation. That's really what drives the whole problem on the dysglycemia side. The gut issues are separate, but there's overlapping themes of cause, right? So the blood sugars stay in there too long, all carbs turn to blood sugars, blood vessels get inflamed, then insulin starts going up, and then we're going to have a problem. Now you're going to either gain weight or urinate it out, but also insulin's a hormone. You're going to disrupt the entire hormone system, and it's going to turn into a mess real quick. Main symptoms of dyspepsia or abnormal digestive system functions: bloat, gassy, fluctuating stool patterns, acid reflux, or abdominal pain or cramping. This is going to be important to address, and that's what the Reset Food Plan is very good at treating, along with the treatment that we give you to focus on improving the areas involved. The Reset Food Plan is like not running. And then the physical therapy or acupuncture in that analogy was like the treatment side, which also can include custom herbal medicine or clinical nutrition. But, when we're talking to the GI tract specialists, usually they just run camera scopes. They're not really talking about signs and symptoms. And that's also valuable. That rules out that there's not something serious, which we don't do. So that's good. However, a camera can't see function. You really got to look at what is going on with the person. We've had patients, I can think of one right now, who literally had 20 plus episodes of explosive diarrhea all throughout their day. I know that sounds crazy, and their life was completely interrupted. They felt like they couldn't leave their house. They go to the GI tract specialist who did a colonoscopy, and the results came back, nothing's wrong with them. So there was no treatment. That's just silly. So we use our conventional care doctors, make sure that there's nothing more serious that we're not looking for. We would refer out. However, you got to go to a holistic doctor, come to see us so that we can figure out what's going on with the system. We want to get the root cause of the system treated so that then the symptoms can go away. We have advanced symptoms here. You can pause it and read this. I'm not going to read it out loud. It'll take too much time. But basically, these gut issues and pre-diabetic issues basically can be a wrecking ball to the entire body, right? Even related to advanced pathologies. Doesn't mean it's going to cause it, right? Doesn't mean if you have blood sugar instability, you're going to get cancer. Although we know that there is a relationship to diabetes and cancer because the immune system's lowered. So it's worthwhile if you have some of these other bigger, greater, awful situations going on that you got to clean up the diet, and the Reset Food Plan and the phases are going to be extremely important for you. But nonetheless, these are things to consider. 3 primary goals of the Reset Food Plan. So number 1, we want to stabilize the fuel system, calm down that spike of insulin, and which is going to be from decreasing the vascular inflammation because we've got the carbs lowered. We want to calm down the GI tract irritation, right? All the grains and starches, the overlapping themes here that they're bloating, irritating. We're reducing those, and we're treating the gut with whatever herbs we need. So that's the 2 main features there. Third, what we're going to put in there, which is so important, is to decrease the cravings. You just can't follow a food plan if you're still craving the food. And that's what the industrialized food system has done. It's provided cheap food, but oftentimes at a cost where the cravings are high and the consumption is high and it's hard to put down. And most of us would agree that food has become addictive. Real natural food, the way we might make a stew, was probably satisfying and not addictive. But nowadays we have sugar in everything. We have excitatory amino acids put into certain foods. It's really become so much of a craving that even if we know better, we can't stop eating certain types of food. So the Reset Food Plan gets rid of those cravings so that we have control of our choice back in our hands. And that's priceless, because otherwise, if you got the cravings and you're just trying to white knuckle it through reducing foods, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to sustain it. Plus, for me, I can't stand fighting my cravings. I just don't even like it. It makes me very uncomfortable. I don't want to think about food. Dominic got pizza the other night and I just didn't crave it. I love that, because when my cravings are off, I'll be already obsessing about it. I'll be thinking about it, and then I'll be telling myself no, and then I have a piece, and then of course, I'm going to have 2 more pieces. So I lost control. So when my cravings are under control from Reset, I don't have that. When I'm in maintenance and I'm having some cheat meals, I keep track of whether or not the cravings are coming back. So if it's really going well, I'm able to deviate, have some tacos, have some pizza on my planned cheat days, and then I don't need to continue eating that food, and the cravings are not there. The cravings come back. I need to go back to the basics of Reset for a little bit longer until I've annihilated those cravings. So talking about the cravings, it is the apostat. The apostat is a reference to our control mechanism, which is in the brain, right? It's in the hypothalamus and pituitary. And that actually is what we're trying to reset. That's part of the name of the food plan. And it also involves relationships with the rest of the body, like our fat and leptin production, which is another hormone that really can create satiation. We want that satiation. Or ghrelin, which comes from the stomach, which can make us really hungry. It's like we're not satiated. So this is what we're trying to balance with the Reset Food Plan. And it's fantastic. It's almost like, to me, who has had out of control cravings, that's one of the most important features, because I don't want to have to fight my food or my diet. I don't want to have to struggle with any kind of diet. So when I have my cravings disappear, I'm very happy, and then I can enjoy my food. So expectations within the first 2 weeks: reduction of cravings, improved sleep, because the blood sugars are stable, decreased urination, especially if you're peeing at night, that should go down or go away. Better energy levels, no longer tired after eating, less bloat, less gas, better stool patterns. Keep in mind, if you're a patient, you will also be taking prescription to support those systems being treated. It is important to medically treat the body in conjunction with Reset. For example, if there is a poor functioning adrenal gland system, a congested liver, and an infection in the intestines, then diet alone will not be enough. This goes for non-patients too. If there are a lot of symptoms, then you should make an appointment. Okay, so final considerations for success. Ketone strips. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at your local drugstore. They're simple, and although we're not doing a keto diet, which is typically very high fat, I don't personally enjoy that. I will increase my fat intake per satiation when we need to in the beginning of Reset, so that you can calm down the cravings. Once my cravings are under control, or your cravings are under control, decrease the fats a little bit, because we want to really burn our own fat. We don't need to be eating gobs of fat. But nonetheless, if you pee on a stick, it tells you if you're fat burning. So I use these every once in a while, let's say if you're new at this, you might want to get them to be motivated to see when you start fat burning consistently. Or if you're like me, I might use this if I cheat a little bit too much. I want to make sure I am able to get back to fat burning quickly. There have been times when I was too far away from reset and I go to follow reset and I check my ketone strips and I'm not fat burning. I'm not fat burning for a while. And that's because I got really sick. My body got so irritated that my Toyota Prius, which is switching back and forth between the fuels, it's not working very well. So when it's ideally, I'll be able to go for a vacation, eat whatever I want on vacation maybe, and then I decide after the vacation, let me get back to reset. I pull out my ketone strips and I'm instantly back on track. I'm fat burning like the next day. And that's basically how I've been for a while now. So here you can see my test for today. It looks almost like I'm in the one over to the left, but I'm not. That was just bad lighting. It was clearly at that moderate level, which is fantastic. So I'm burning fat great. And that makes sense. I had sushi, all you can eat sushi on Friday, but I fasted 2 days last week, and the rest of the time I've been low carbohydrate. So, I'm enjoying myself, and I'm also sticking to the plan, and I have no cravings. Great, super easy, super good. The other consideration is drcasoni.social. Type that into your web browser on your phone or on your computer, drcasoni.social. That's the website. That is a social media that I'm hosting on my own server. So there's no data mining. There's no evil, conspiracy trying to manipulate an algorithm. There's no algorithm. It's simple. It's a very nice layout, but it allows for us to use this just for health conversations and reset. You can post all your food journal pictures there, and that won't clutter up your Facebook or your Instagram. I don't want to host a group on Facebook because they take down health groups and holistic medicine groups for no reason, a lot. So we just get to be left alone. And also you can use it just for that purpose. So drcasoni.social, get on there, start posting. I'll see you there. You don't even have to use your real name. You can just use a fake name, get on there, because the only point is to stay motivated and stick with reset. And then you can have any questions answered and be part of our community on there that's growing. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be rolling out some other videos that are covering the phases and fasting. And until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. All right. Bye.